Okay. So now, let's back up a little bit. This little device right here, we're going to position this on the shaft relative to the web. Let's say the web is running like this at a cutting station, right? We're going to position this cutter centered on the web, or in its position. And because we know that we always reference the center line of the press in all the positioning of our tooling and our paper and materials going down, we're going to do the same thing with this. So we can actually predict where this needs to be if we know where the material is being cut and where that cut is relative to the center of the machine. Okay? So now, but before we commit this thing to where it's positioned on the shaft, because once we clamp this down we have no lateral adjustment, we want to make sure we start with this in the center as much as possible and then just fine tune that position with this knob. But in order to be able to fine tune the position with this knob, we want to start off with an equal amount of adjustment in either direction, so that whichever direction we need to adjust, we have adjustment, okay? So we do that by turning this all the way in one direction, let's say. And I noticed in this thing that if you go all the way, the blade actually touches this holder. So don't ever turn it all the way to where the blade is not free, okay? So I'm going to just touch this holder, and I'm going to give it one turn using a reference, so that I'm going to use that as my starting point in this range. I'm going to neglect that one turn so I have clearance, and I'll never think about that part. Always have that clearance. Now, so now I'm going to turn it and count the number of turns in all the way the other direction. You're looking at a reference, that's one turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 4 turns, 5 turns, 6 turns, 7 turns, 7 turns. So now I have 7 turns from one end to one end. So I'm going to come back 3.5 turns. 1, 2, 3, and 1/2. Now I can turn it all the way that way, 3.5 turns until I bottom out. Or I can turn it this way, 3.5 turns until this gets close but doesn't touch this thing, and that's my adjustment. So now I have this centered, I have equal distance adjustment. Now is when I will take this device, I'll put it on the shaft, position this wheel where it should go based on the references that I described earlier, wherever that may be. Once it's clamped down, or close, not clamped down, but just lightly snug around the shaft where I can still adjust it a little bit, but it's kind of held. I'll bring it and I'll touch it to the paper. I'll touch it to the paper first. The paper on the end. Then I will rotate this back now, let's say 1 turn. Okay?
Touching the paper, just
right. Actually, let's do this. Let's do 2 turns. We can back out 1 turn, right? So I just did 2 turns on this back adjustment, which, by the way, just about makes it flush. So maybe let's see what flush does. Yeah, 2 turns is just about flush, right? So we'll go 2 turns on this knob. We'll present it to the paper, clamp it down. Then when we back out on this 1 turn, what that does is it still keeps spring tension so that this screw doesn't turn freely. But this is what happens. Let's just say you've got this lever here, okay? And you're applying the screw to it right here. I touch this. Now I turn 2 turns, which push this down, let's say to here, pushing that up about the pivot point. And let's just say it just brought the wheel up 2 turns worth, okay? Now I slide this down to what it touches. Then I rotate it back out 1 turn until the wheel touches again. What that means is, actually I'm sorry, the wheel's already touching, but if I back it out 1 turn, that means it's got it's free to, in fact, if the angle wasn't there, this wheel would come down 1 turn's distance worth into that roller. So what we've done is we've ensured that there's contact by a turn. And any microscopic irregularities are more than compensated by this. This thing, when it's finally set, this is the key, when it's finally set up, is a turn's worth, 1 turn backing it out would just start to free it up. Okay? I think I said that right. Is that better? So, the sequence is, start with this back out, center this, all the way, now I can just go all the way this way, and I know it's 3.5 turns, so I'll just go 1, 2, 3, and 1/2. Now I have that center. Breaking out the spring tension all the way. Put this on the shaft. Now, turn this. 1, 2 turns. Touch the paper. Lock this down. It's in when it's in center. Lock it down. Back it out 1 turn. I'm done. Okay?